Hey all, welcome to Parker's Reefs. On today's episode, we're going to check out an incredible program that is doing its bit to save our Great Barrier Reef. Alright, thank you for joining me on yet another episode of Parker's Reefs. And for those in the know, I recently had a little trip up to Cairns in Queensland, Australia, mostly to have a chat to the Triton guys, but whilst I was there, I also had the opportunity to go and visit Isaac at the Forever Reef Project. Now, I've got to be straight with you guys out there. I must admit I'd heard very little about this project prior to going into the facility, but I can tell you now I am so glad that I did. Isaac and the team at the Forever Reef Project are doing their bit to save the Great Barrier Reef, and the way they are doing it is quite, well, I was going to say unique, but to be fair, it's quite familiar to you and I, the home reef aquarists out there, because if you've ever taken a frag of a coral and given it to one of your reefing buddies and said, just hang on to this one for me just in case the worst happens and I lose this coral in the future, well, the Forever Reef Project's kind of doing that for the entire Great Barrier Reef. Now, it's a super cool concept and they are doing it without any government funding whatsoever. They're getting support from businesses and like-minded people like you and I out there. So I wanted to do my bit to give those guys a little bit of an opportunity to spotlight the fantastic work they're doing. And also, I just really enjoyed visiting the facility and checking out all of the amazing work they're doing. So without any further ado, let's roll the footage and go chat to Isaac at the Forever Reef Project. All right, we are here in a special little area of Cairns Aquarium with Isaac, who's going to tell us all about the Forever Reef program. Firstly, thank you for having us. And secondly, can you tell us, what is this program? What are we standing in?
No worries. Well, like you said, my name is Isaac. I'm the Chief Aquarist for Great Barrier Reef Legacy, which is our non-for-profit company. And the project, the Forever Reef Project, is designed, from what you see around you, to collect every species of hard coral off the Great Barrier Reef, which is roughly around 415 species. Our goal is to keep them in closed systems like this so that we can try and preserve that genetic diversity for years to come and give scientists that chance, which is time, to actually protect or solve what's going on the reef.
So you guys exist literally to provide time. Yes. We know that the reefs are a dynamic environment. Things change. Bleaching comes, bleaching goes, various predators go, weather conditions come and go. It's easy enough for some of our ultra precious genus of corals on the Great Barrier Reef to be completely wiped out and then gone. So this facility here exists to keep literally a banker. Well, what all of us reef hobbyists do when you give your good reefing buddy a frag of one of your favorite corals and say, if I ever lose it, you've got a backup for me.
Please.
You guys are doing this for the Great Barrier Reef. This is incredible.
100%. The concept started because Dr. Charlie Veron, if you guys know him, he's the first marine biologist ever employed on the Great Barrier Reef. Amazing history. He wrote the book on coral taxonomy, basically. So he went on an expedition far north with Dr. Dean Miller, who's our director for GBR Legacy, and John Rumney, who founded the facility. And they discovered a reef with a huge amount of diversity, almost 200 species of coral on one reef.
Wow.
And he discovered a new species of coral. And unfortunately, they went back 2 years later and a cyclone had completely ripped the entire reef off. So it was gone. It then thankfully provided them the opportunity to go further north, where he then discovered a reef with almost 215 species. So a more diverse reef, which is great, but that sparked in John Rumney to start a facility where we go, okay, we need a seed bank. We don't want what's happening to, say, Florida or in America to happen to us. And so we're trying to get ahead of the 8 ball. And scientists are experimenting with things like cryogenics for coral, which is amazing.
Super cool.
But it's still in the early phases. So we need to create that time. If we do lose these species on the reef, they're still here. They're a backup.
Amazing.
We hope in the future to actually use hobbyists and aquarists such as yourselves to do that. So, yeah.
It's literally the crowdsourcing equivalent, I guess, because
100%.
You're talking, it was 400 and something species you're trying to keep
around
here?
415 species. Obviously, they're doing genetic sampling at the moment, so that could change as they reclassify corals, but around 415 species, and then 4 different genetics of each of those species.
Wow, so we're talking serious numbers of coral.
Yeah, there's about over 3,000 frags in here at the moment, about 174 species.
Yes.
So we're about halfway to our collection goals.
Incredible. Well, now that we know the premise and the concept of the facility, can you take us through a little bit of the infrastructure here on what it takes to hold these corals and then have the weight on your shoulders of keeping these alive, trying to do what Mother Nature sometimes struggles to do?
100%. I am, well, obviously, brief background history. I started as an aquarist, as most of us do, at home, and there's so much history and so much experimentation that happens at home with the hobbyist that there's not a lot of experimenting or science that we need to put into it that hasn't already been done.
Yes.
And so we can take those concepts that everyone does at home and we can apply it here. So thankfully, there's not a lot of groundbreaking work or back work that needs to go into it.
Sure.
So a lot of you might have heard a company called Triton. We run the Triton method, full Triton method. It's something that was fairly new to me a few years ago, but having applied it to a lot of our public aquariums that I've worked in, it's worked really, really well. We have a lot of volunteers that come through, and so it's very easy for us to actually give them more responsibility in controlling water parameters, so it takes less off my shoulders.
Amazing.
In that, we try and provide some really good lighting. We've got some Orphic lighting here. Obviously, we're working in these tanks every day, so we don't want to try and move lights out of the way all the time, so thought into a lot of the procedures that we do in that respect. Obviously, large raceways. This is a 5-meter raceway that we've got at the moment, about 2,500 litres. And so trying to provide flow in these tanks can be difficult in those sorts of circumstances. So we've got some Red Sea Wave Makers and some Ecotech Vortex MP60s on the ends. And that basically is just the stock standard. We've got some fish in here, some invertebrates, about 4 different species of snails as well to try and help maintain the collection. It's better that we get nature and the environment to do it than us. I've got big sausage fingers.
They work a lot cheaper.
Oh, yes. And 24/7 too.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, they don't apply to a to an enterprise agreement, that's for sure. Now, one thing I want to talk about with this lighting, you guys have just recently changed some lighting here to further replicate where these corals have come from. Can you take us through a bit of that detail?
100%. So when we make a decision on what equipment we're using, we go through a process of trying to replicate the ocean.
Yes.
The perfect thing that is that environment, the ocean, which is really hard to do. And so when we're collecting such a diverse reef system, obviously we've split these up into LPS and SPS systems dominantly.
Yes.
But when they come from the wild, they come from different depths, different environments. And so we need something that's powerful but diverse and that we can control. And so these new lights here, the Orphic Atlantic icons, are great for us because we can narrow the lenses. So Orphic has kindly custom made them a little bit for us. So the lenses are a 90-degree lens.
Yes.
So we can keep them further away from the tank.
Yep.
They also provide a wide spectrum for us so that the corals are healthy. And it means that we can provide custom par for the corals. An added benefit is that they've just done an update where we can actually select a location, a geolocation that these guys actually pull from satellite. So we can see sunrise and sunset times and also moonrise and moonset times.
Crazy.
So technology is just getting better and better.
So you're replicating as closely as possible. I mean, it's not the sun, it's an LED, but you're doing everything you can to replicate the location where these are taken
100%.
from. So these corals hopefully don't notice the difference. And
we're not millionaires, so we try to do the best we can with what we have, and thankfully a lot of the technology is really, really good these days.
Yeah, working a treat. Now, I did also notice over on the back wall here, you got a couple of alcatronic systems there.
Yeah, that's true. We really love the alcatronic systems. I use them in other public aquarium systems because DKH is so vital and so important.
Yeah.
And obviously with the Triton method as well, it relies heavily on that DKH measuring.
Yes.
We use the alcatronic because its sole purpose is that DKH measurement, and I can receive all the notifications on my watch. Beautiful. I could be somewhere else in the world and still dose these tanks accordingly, because if something goes wrong, we could potentially lose all of our stock. So a little bit more stress, but that's why we place such importance on accuracy and things that work really well for us.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, on top of that, what other sort of maintenance is required here? I mean, obviously you do your testing with the alcatronic, and being on the Triton method, you're not doing water changes and you're doing frequent ICPs and
yes, correct,
supplementing your trace elements accordingly. I imagine, I mean, when there's such emphasis on keeping these corals alive in here, even just like I'm looking down at these pieces down here that are encrusting and growing out, I imagine you're going to face some coral warfare issues. You've got to make 100%. Sure pieces aren't blowing around and landing upside down or on top of something else.
Yeah. Well, it's all well and good to say, hey, we can keep 5,000 frags in here, but obviously that's just not going to be the case.
Yeah, you keep
Like
5,000 frags when they're small, yeah.
Yes, and so especially with LPS corals, as everyone knows, we need to keep a distance between them.
Yes.
So the maintenance that goes into this facility is mainly just trying to keep the genetics alive. We're not trying to grow big colonies that you might have in, say, a hobby tank,
yes,
or a display at an aquarium. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes into checking every single coral.
Yes.
We have a database that was custom made by one of our tech guys.
Yes.
So massive thank you for him. He put so much work and effort into it. We actually have RFID chips in every single frag base. So if we have a look underneath,
yes,
that little sphere under there is a dog tag.
Wow.
So we can scan that and it'll give us the data from when this coral was collected.
Yes.
So we have photos and data from the wild colony.
Yes.
We have data from when it was fragged and all the health checks.
Yes.
And once every 6 months, we're hoping to get that down as we get more volunteers. But once every 6 months, we do a health check that takes 3 angles, photos, and measures that against a color chart.
Yes.
And basically allows us to measure the density, the weight of the coral, and how much it's grown.
Right.
So we place a lot of that in the growth of coral. Obviously, there's not a lot of maintenance in terms of algae, thankfully, because with the Triton method, everything's fairly stable.
Yes.
And with all the animals that we have in here, there's not a whole lot of rock, so it's fairly easy to clean if we need to, or if we need to move frag plates, thankfully. But everything is relatively smooth sailing for now.
Yeah.
Touch wood.
It does pose an interesting question. Normally, when people say they're not doing water changes, you sort of worry about nutrient buildup and stuff, but you've got quite a decent coral load here, minimal fish, like minimal to none. I imagine you're having to supplement some nutrients or potentially some food or something just to, stop things bottoming out. What's your 100%. Approach there?
So, obviously, like you said, oftentimes people are trying to reduce their nutrients in the tank. It's the opposite for us because of that lack of bioload. We actually want the nutrients. We're always on the side of too little nutrients.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We run a pretty hefty refugium as well.
Yes.
And so that often takes quite a lot of the nutrients out of the water.
Yes.
So we're using P alpha at the moment from Triton as a supplement to help with that.
Yep.
We also feed live Artemia from the aquarium, which is what we use for jellyfish feeding.
Super handy. Yeah.
Yeah. Super great. Super convenient. So that's the benefit of being in, say, like the Cairns Aquarium. So thank you to the Cairns Aquarium.
Yeah.
Really good for our LPS corals. We've got carbon AL99 in the system as well, so everything is targeted towards removing that nutrients. We're looking at actually putting in some chromis, blue-green chromis, so fish that are just there to provide nutrients. Have a bit of fun. These tanks are quite shallow, so although wrasse are really good for parasites, we try and stick with fish that aren't going to jump out the side.
Exactly, wrasse are going to be jumping for the Olympics in here,
So putting nutrients in is actually our hardest battle at this stage.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting. Now, you mentioned that the program relies on some volunteer work.
Yes.
How do people find out more information and how do they get involved?
So you might be able to show you, there's a QR code on the back wall eventually. So if people scan that, or if they go to the foreverreef.org, then they'll be able to find our website there. They'll be able to find out more about the project, and they'll be able to look at our volunteer forms as well. So we do multiple different forms of volunteering. You can either volunteer in the facility here.
Yes.
There's marketing volunteering if you're into social media. We also do a lot of reef surveys where we go out to the Great Barrier Reef and do those coral health checks as well.
Lots of ways for people to get involved, and I'm sure...
100%.
Well, I should ask, but I'm assuming there's also the possibility for people to donate money as well if they're not able to physically be there to do some of that supplement.
Some interesting things coming up actually while you're talking about that. We've got our hub projects, which we're actually looking to work with traditional owners to almost develop like a shipping container with raceways in them so that we can expand this project.
Yes.
Part of that, or a strain of that, we're talking with America and other parts of resellers in Australia so that we can actually send some of these frags as they outgrow these facilities to those industries, so people like yourselves can actually buy them and have them in your tank and be a part of the project, which would massively help because there's so many people around the world that have home aquariums and it's a great way to be a part of the project. The other project we have going is you can actually adopt a coral, which went live a couple of weeks ago, I believe.
Awesome.
So you can adopt a coral here and you get a certificate and an update on how that coral's going. When we do those health checks, you'll actually receive live information on how it's doing and how it's growing and what we've done with it, where it's collected from on the reef, all those sorts of things, if it's used in a science program, all that sort of stuff.
Amazing, something everyone can get behind, and I do love the idea of people being able to buy corals from the grow out here because, I mean, it's basically two birds with one stone for a lack of a better analogy in that as you touched on before, you're trying to keep these corals alive, not necessarily trying to grow them, but
Yeah.
I mean, the two go hand in hand. You keep a coral alive, it's going to grow. We don't want to stunt it, but on the same hand, you know, we've got a finite amount of space. So as those corals grow out and you are fragging them back, that they can grow out and then potentially be bought, which can bring funds into the facility, but also keep it light and agile and stop
100%.
those corals growing into each other and killing each other.
Everyone has so much experience at the home aquarium. Like I said, we've borrowed so much knowledge from home aquarists to build these facilities. Why not partner with home aquarists to be a part of the project then as well? So it's a great way for people to get involved and for us to go, hey, we haven't got the space and the funds. We're a non-for-profit to keep growing this facility and have thousands of tanks. So
incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, one last thing, if people, if they've donated some money or some time, or they've signed up to do some volunteering elsewhere and they still want to be more involved, do you guys also offer tours of this facility so people can actually come in and they don't just have to watch this video on YouTube? They can pop in and actually have a chat with yourself and some other staff here and have a look at the corals and see what's involved and really get a feel for the importance of this project.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're ever in Cairns, pop by and come around to the Cairns Aquarium where we run the tours at the moment. And hopefully we have some other facilities in the future where we do tours in them as well, so we'll keep you posted. But definitely come around, come say hi, send us an email on the website if you're around. So yeah.
Incredible. Well, I cannot thank you enough, both for your time today, because
thank you.
We're here after hours. You should be well on your way home, but you've stayed back so I can microphone you and film you.
We live and breathe this stuff. I think you know. This doesn't stop when I go home.
No, I can imagine. But more broadly, I want to thank you for the work you're doing, because
thank you.
We're all very well familiar with the doom and gloom stories that are out there in the media, and as important as they are, it does start to weigh you down a little bit. So hearing about some positive, non-political driven, just some actual tangible efforts that people are putting in to save our Great Barrier Reef, and people can literally come and see this. It's not an article they read from some dark web. This is a physical facility where the work's been done, and you can come and see these corals and see all the work you're doing. It's just second to none. Amazing.
It's incredible, actually, now that you mention it. This facility, Dr. Charlie Veron did a documentary a few years ago. And this facility was built on the backs of funds from people from the public that donated them, and a few companies. Because this is it's the only facility of its kind in the world.
Yes.
We don't fit into a category, so we're not government funded in any way. It's basically purely companies that have helped fund us along the way and the general public.
Incredible.
So off that documentary, people like yourselves built this facility. This wouldn't be here without you guys. So massive thank you to everyone as well.
To everyone, but also a very big tip of the cap to Charlie. He does incredible work for just representing Australia, but obviously also our reefs as well. So
definitely
great to hear these stories. And once again, can't thank you enough. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming around. I enjoyed it.
Alright guys, there you have it. That is the Forever Reef Project, and what an incredible not-for-profit facility this is, driven a lot by volunteers and getting support from like-minded hobbyists like you and I, as well as members of the general public, and some very generous businesses getting involved, doing what they can to ensure that this project has the funding it needs, and of course the time and resources and materials they need to continue to keep these specimens alive, so that we have that banker copy of every single coral in the Great Barrier Reef, and purely designed to give our scientists time to discover what we can do to save these corals in the wild, and giving them the ability to track the corals, learn as much information as we can, because information in this space absolutely is power. Now, it goes without saying, I would love it if you guys could jump onto their website and either reach out to the team to find out what you can do to help, or of course, take the easy path there and donate a few dollars just to see this project and this program continue on its merry way. I know I'm personally going to get involved and donate some money, because I got a real kick out of seeing a process that I do with my reefing buddies by sharing some frags around so that we've all got banker copies of these should the worst happen, has become a bigger scale project and is doing its bit to save the entire Great Barrier Reef. It put a smile on my face, and I got to say, Isaac was an absolute champion, staying back after hours to ensure that we had all the information we needed this video, which was really, really generous of his time. So I can't say thanks enough. Now, speaking of thanks, I do want to give a quick shout out to all of our channel subscribers. We are still edging ever so closely to that 30,000 subscriber mark, which is truly humbling. And I also wanted to give, of course, A massive shout out to all of my channel members. These names on screen here now. These guys chip in a couple of bucks each and every month, and at the moment when releasing a video every single week, that means that couple of bucks spreads across the 4 videos where they get their name mentioned here. My small way of showing appreciation for those dollars you guys do chip in to make all of these videos possible. So once again, thank you very much for that. Other than that, guys, I will probably leave you with it. I do have even more footage from my Cairns trip to come, another couple of videos, including one that you guys requested, a little bit of an overview of both the full Triton method and also a little sneak peek of that Triton Great Barrier Reef 2.0 display tank they have coming, and maybe also a little visit to Cairns Aquarium to have a chat to the team about their real reef display tanks there. Not those ones that are just fish displays with fake corals, but the ones with real corals in there. And we might even get our foot in the door, sneak out the back and have a little look at the filtration, lighting, and of course maybe even a little top-down view of some of these super tall coral displays, which is going to be a video not to be missed. If you do have any questions, comments, feedback, anything at all, please pop your comments in the questions section down below. I do personally reply to each and every comment there, so it is the best way to get hold of me. And if I don't know the answer, I will track down the right people to get the answer for you and respond then. So please don't be shy. I love to see all your comments down there, and I really do appreciate the time you take to put them in there. Other than that, guys, I think I will leave you with it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, keep reefing. Cheers, bye.